Larissa's POV.
I felt my heart in my chest staring at all the weapons littered in the bright room, completely frozen in fear and surprise. There were blood trails on the concrete floor, and whatever walls peeked through were painted gray. The said walls were coated with multiple racks of swords and guns and arrows. By a tall shelf were smaller knives, and it scared the hell out of me when he wouldn't stop staring at it. Was he going to stab me with them? The possibilities were endless. Slowly, I shifted my attention to him sitting cross-legged on the ground. Only then did I notice the box of first aid supplies beside him and him low grunts while pinching his nostrils. He must really be hurt. The cut on his idle arm was refusing to dry up. "Oh my, how exactly did you get so hurt?" I mumbled, letting out a small sigh before crouching to his eye level. He gave me a small side-eye before looking away. "You said you could help. Push your bangs aside. Let me take a look at it." He did exactly as I said so I could see his injuries clearly. They did look serious, but I'd rather not ask. I still didn't know who he was. I sighed again and opened up the first aid box to clean his wounds. They were too deep to heal with some sort of stitching. Even with the strongest regenerative properties, it would take about 2 days to heal. It would get infected if it stayed like that. "You need to see Annalise after this," I said with a small smile while cleaning his bloodied nose. He looked up at me and began to stand up, shaking the arm that was now covered in a few blended herbs. I did wonder why the kid had herbs at it. Was it a pack thing? He was clearing his throat, looking away from me. I finally noticed his tank top. They were a radiant burgundy, paired with black cargo pants and matching combat boots. Perhaps he was a soldier? Thanks. And I'm not just a soldier. He was doing it again. It was uncomfortable to know that even my thoughts could be intruded. No privacy whatsoever. His chuckling caught me off guard. "You could get used to it. And thanks again for helping me out." His tone was a lot warmer than I had expected. There were genuinely kind people in this pack. Perhaps the Alpha drank a dose of bad water. TSK. "You're welcome." I suddenly remembered why I came here in the first place. The cleaning supplies. "Oh, excise me," I called out when he'd turned away to leave. He stopped and faced me, cocking a brow. Now that he had his hair tied back, he did look familiar. Where have I seen him? Where can I get cleaning supplies? How would I know that? I'm new here. And I just treated you even when you dragged me into this scary room. Perhaps you can simply point me in the direction? His look did not falter. Instead, he walked out of the door, pointing at the direction I came from. "Don't ever bring up the treatment. I only let you do it because it was urgent." His voice was low, but got the message across however. "Over there, back at the mansion. In the kitchen or whatever." I managed to thank him before he walked away with the bow he'd been wearing slung across his torso. I suddenly felt stupid. How had I not known about it? Of course the supplies would be inside the house. Awkwardly patting my fingers on my dress, I returned to the mansion to find the supplies to clean.
Caden's POV.
The litter of paperwork on my desk was infuriating. I slammed the second one on the desk in annoyance, leaning back and running a hand through my hair. Couldn't these people do anything without supervision? What incompetent fools! The view from my office was one of the few things I liked about the company building and dwelling in the midst of humans. I didn't hate them, but they would never work at my company because I didn't trust them. The streets were bustling with a lot of their kind mixed with werewolves, that I was certain of. My attention shifted to my door when I heard it open, and I swirled the chair to face the door that had just been opened. It was Hunter, strutting to my table with a bunch of folders in his hands. He dropped them on the table, stepping back before giving a small bow. "These are documents regarding the Leo Jaeger suppliers." He spoke firmly. "They are asking for a 70% commission before supply. So they proposed a contract revision." I rose a brow in distaste. Did they take my leniency with them for idiocy? What the fuck? What nonsense? "The board said only you could handle it." He continued. I could see him twitching. "Then tell my secretary to get an email across. I'm rejecting the offer. This is the reason I don't like dealing with miserly humans." I hissed out, running my hands through my hair again. Find a new supplier. This project must go on. He bowed sharply, before looking at me again. Alpha, there's been some more news from the South Sea. Tell me when we get to the pack. I ground out, glaring harshly. I believe you're aware that pack matters only stay within the pack, and I hate repeating myself. There was a soft knock on the door, dividing my attention. It was Jackson with a Band-Aid on his nose. I'd asked him before, he said he'd gone hunting alone. He was without the suit, only wearing a crisp white shirt with gray pants. Sir, you have a meeting in 20 minutes, he said quickly, before noticing the thick air in the room. Jackson doubled as my secretary at the office, quite reliable compared to the other knuckleheads that called themselves my board. All right, Dash. The loud buzzing sound on the table was jarring. Who the fuck would disturb my peace at this time? I picked up the phone angrily, bringing it to my ears while simultaneously loosening my necktie. Hello? I half yelled, quite ready to haul if the bastard was calling for something stupid. Hello? The voice at the receiver spoke calmly. Alpha Caden? I'm calling from the kindergarten. Is something wrong with Declan? I blurted out, sitting up. It was the pack's kindergarten headmistress, Mrs. Allowood. Her usually calm voice had a hint of worry, making me fret. Did something happen to my son? No, Alpha. He's all right, he's here with me. What the fuck did that even mean? It was already 5 p.m., why was he still there? What do you mean? Declan's still in school. The woman who usually takes him home hasn't come yet. I could feel the bile in my throat. That goddamned woman couldn't get even the slightest thing right. She's been getting awfully on my nerves, and now she had the audacity to leave my son in kindergarten? The fuck, I would literally kill her. I slammed down the phone hard on the desk and raked through my hair. I knew my eyes would turn a fiery orange, I could see it from the monitor. How dare she? Did she think I was joking when I said I would rip her fucking head off? I picked up the phone again, then quickly realized that she didn't own a phone. The fucking hell. Hunter, Jackson. I need a favor from you. Return to the pack and drive Declan home from kindergarten. I have something else to take care of here.
Larissa's POV.
After a few days of trying to meet the Alpha's excessive hygiene demands, the living room was finally spotless. The sun was setting quickly, softly illuminating the room with a golden glow. I swiped a finger through the glass coffee table, quickly wiping off the imprints. I was impressed with myself. What was left was making dinner, and I had to do was assist Gwendolyn in the kitchen. For the love of all things good, I was a decent cook. I was on my way to the kitchen when there was a soft gust of breeze and the French entrance doors flew open. The red-haired man whose name I didn't know stepped into the living room, and trailing behind him was the same man I'd treated that day. He looked a little different than the last time, in a white shirt and gray suit pants. For a second, I was confused as to what they were doing here in the first place. Welcome back. Can I get you a glass? I chimed as sweetly as I could muster, yet they said nothing. The redhead was blank-faced, while the one in a man bun was staring at me as if I was a petrified being. Confused, I squinted and clasped both hands in front of me. Only then did I notice the small figure in the redhead's hand. The honey-haired toddler has a finger sticking deep in his nose with a small backpack slung over his shoulders, staring at me before playing around some more with his nostrils. My eyes widened at that. Why were they with Declan? I had to pick him up in about. I looked up to the clock and gasped in horror. It was almost 6 p.m. Oh my God, how could I have forgotten him in kindergarten? If a word got out to the Alpha, I was in serious trouble. Declan. I half yelled, rushing to his sides. The man let go of his hands, and I pulled the boy close, expecting him to whimper and scream like he always did. But he did none of those. He just remained there, still picking at his nose. I felt worry drown me in that moment, forgetting about everything I was supposed to do. He was a sensitive child, how must he have felt when I forgot him at kindergarten? Declan, I'm so sorry. Ms. Larissa is really sorry for leaving you, I said slowly, cupping his cheeks. He didn't move, he only shifted his gaze to the ground. I straightened my posture to look at the men that had brought Declan home. I'm so sorry, I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am for what you just did. I spoke again with a tight-lipped smile, but there was no reaction from the redhead. Only the other men gave me a small nod as response. Well, the Alpha is pissed so dash. Where the fuck is Larissa? His voice was unmistakable. My very core shook from the rumble, even the men flinched at the sound. He appeared enraged, without his necktie, and the buttons on his burgundy suit were undone. He stormed in, pushing past the two men till he was standing in front of my wide-eyed form. You. The weight of his voice was murderous. I gulped, cowering in fear. The way he called my name was scary. You! He yelled again. Didn't I tell you that if a hair of my son's head was harmed, I would kill you? I was tongue-tied. My head kept saying to make an apology, but I couldn't bring myself to. If I looked at him, I might cry. What the fuck would a useless whore like you know about taking care of a child? How could you leave him there? I really didn't mean to, Alpha. And I'm not a whore. I countered, immediately regretting it. The chrome of his eyes had turned fully orange. He looked like he would snap my neck in two. Are you talking back at me? Ever since you came here, all you've done is laze around and fucking beg me to let you stay. You don't know anything. Nothing. He thundered again, and I jerked backwards, afraid that he would hit me like Stefan. My whole body shook at the thought, and I felt the years I'd tried so hard to hold back begin to brim. I'm so sorry, please dash. You know what, that's enough. He stepped back, drawing ragged breaths and pinching his nostrils. That's bloody enough. I don't want to hear any more of your excuses. Go upstairs, pick up everything you came here with, and get the fuck out my pack. My face fell instantly. I felt more presences in the living area, but I could care less. I turned to look at Declan, who had his face buried in the black-haired man's thigh. Gwendolyn rushed out from the kitchen I'd thought her to be in, awkwardly shuffling around to pick up the toddler and take him away. I was grateful for that, but it was settling in that the Alpha had practically just kicked me out in front of everybody. The warm liquid had begun to pour out of my eyes before I could stop them. Wait! Please, I'm so dash. Don't! Fucking! Beg! Me! He growled loudly, now standing with one hand on his waist and the other pointing at me in accusation. I will kill you and feed you to the vultures if you dare me.
Larissa's POV.
I watched him enjoy seeing me cry. It wasn't even worth it, yet I watched him. With the despair etched on my face, he finally stepped back and his eyes returned to their enchanting color. I hated the fact that despite his unfounded hatred for me, my wolf still found him attractive. It took more than sheer willpower to bring myself to realize the situation at hand again. He was kicking me out without an option to ask for forgiveness. The familiar dark-haired man began to shift in his position, sighing and clenching his jaw softly. He looked like words would fall off his lips, but nothing happened, and he drew back. The redhead on the other hand took 2 quick steps forward, pulling on the Alpha's suit. My lord, please temper justice with mercy. He began to talk, only for this sweet chocolate-haired Alpha to shake his head vehemently and whip around sharply. I couldn't see his face from where I stood, but it was certain that he was shooting daggers at him. Don't you fucking interfere, Hunter. There is only so much I can tolerate from you. I know it's not in my place. Then fucking stay put, Jackson! That was his name, Jackson. The man flinched slowly and stepped back, watching the Alpha turn around sharply. He glared at me one last time, but I cowered away. He would have seen me cry more tears. I felt his glare strike small sparks of flames on my skin before he shoved both hands in his pockets and started for the stairs. There were sighs from the 2 men in front of me. I finally raised my head to see the one called Hunter through me what I assumed was a pitiful look. Jackson's expression was somewhat blank, I couldn't tell his thoughts. They spun around and left the living room, along with a number of feet that had come to see what the ruckus was about. I wanted to just fall at his feet and cry and ask for mercy. He'd stopped me from doing even that much. I heard my wolf whimper, bringing all the emotions I felt together and dumping it on my head. Wiping my eyes quickly, I dragged my feet to the kitchen where Gwendolyn stood idly by the fire, giving me sorry glances. She wouldn't say even a word to me, how desperately I wanted to hear it. Instead, she picked up a dish she had served and muttered something incoherent about meeting Declan before leaving me to my thoughts. My stomach refused the usual growl at the sight of food, but I made a dish for myself nonetheless and brought it to the dining in the kitchen. I stabbed at the porridge with a fork, finally letting the tears of my misery fall. The last time I'd had a beautiful round-table meal was with my parents. Did they worry about me? Did they wonder what Stefan had done with me? Were they suffering because they believe I was dead? I stabbed at the porridge again and pushed it away, falling to the table in tears that must have wetted my hair severely. Asterisk. I fluttered my eyes open as soon as I could, after having tossed repeatedly on the bed. When did I even get here? I was so sure I'd fallen asleep on the kitchen dining. Stretching, I shook my head at the feeling. The Alpha didn't know I was still in the house, which was a risk one too many on its own. But regardless of what he said, Declan was more important than his anger. I've seen him nearly claw his head off whenever he would cry, so I was certain that he cared about the toddler too much to hurt him. I ran one hand through my hair and rolled off the comfortable bed before taking a quick shower and dressed up in a yellow dress that matched up with my hair to an extent. I finally looked through the window that was open just a tad bit to see that it was fairly dark. Confused, I glanced at the wall clock. It was still 5 a.m. Why was I up so early? But then, it would be for the best, I thought. I wanted to smile at myself, but my lips were unwilling. The fear of being kicked out wouldn't let me. I heaved a sharp sigh instead, and walked down the stairs in the relatively cold morning to check on Gwendolyn. She was in the kitchen like I expected, warming up some milk. She looked at me as soon as she'd felt my presence, and soon let out a giggle. "You look like a panda, Larissa," she said with a small smile before shifting her eyes back to the milk. I forced myself to smile back, my thoughts drifting off to last night. I half expected her to ask me questions or scold me for leaving him at kindergarten like the Alpha did, yet she did none of those. Instead, she asked, "You good?" "I'm fine, thanks," I muttered back. Gwendolyn?" "Gwen's fine, Larissa." "Oh. Gwen." "Yes, please?" Her answers were funny. I found her grace odd sometimes, but I was used to it at this point. She was looking at me now, lips drawn, almost flat, but her friendly eyes said otherwise. "Would you mind preparing Declan for school? I'd like to make a meal for him." She was blank-faced for a few seconds, then smiled gently. "The Alpha also likes toast and bacon. No eggs, he hates that. But Declan likes them." My eyes narrowed slightly at the information. I said I wanted to make breakfast for Declan, not the Alpha, so what was she rambling on about? As if on cue, the corners of her small lips curled up in a smile. "I know you're sorry for what you did yesterday, and Alpha Caden can be ruthless when it comes to his son. You might want to try getting on his good side by preparing an apology meal for starters." She finished without sparing me a glance. She leaned up to a top cabinet and reached for a loaf of bread, placing them on the kitchen table. She looked at me with the small smile still on her face and cleaned her hands on the apron. "Your choice, Larissa." And she walked out of the kitchen, leaving me to my thoughts. The plan was to remain as resilient as the last time until he let me stay with whatever punishment he would come up with. But an apology meal? Thinking better of it, I decided to make a meal for Declan and one for the Alpha. Maybe, just maybe it would work. With little effort, I set up the dining table and waited there for a minute for Gwendolyn and Declan. The thud of wood drew my attention to the stairs, where one of the toddler's wooden knives was tumbling to the foot of the stairs. I picked it up and soon, the boy was running down with a half-panicked Gwendolyn running after him. There, Declan," I cooed, pulling him in to stop his running. "What did I say about running down the stairs?" The boy was staring at me like an intriguing piece of drawing paper before sticking his tiny thumb in his ear. I chuckled at that. He did that every time he thought I was nagging him. There was a heaving Gwen beside him in a moment, clicking her tongue in frustration. "For the love of all things, Declan, stop running down the stairs," she hurled, breathing harshly with both hands resting on her hips. The toddler couldn't be bothered. Instead, he shook himself away from me and went to take his seat on the table. He looked confused for a full minute before picking up the tall glass of milk and sipping at it. The way he scrunched his nose before nibbling on the eggs was heartwarming. He always refused to eat my dishes, and his milk had to be vanilla-flavored for him to drink it. But here he was, munching on the eggs giddily and completely abandoning his toast. Typical Declan. What the fuck is going on here? Shit. I'd completely forgotten about the fact that the alpha was still in the house. I whipped my head around immediately to see him glaring angrily at me. The flames in his eyes matched his dark orange suit and his tousled hair. I wished he would stop looking at me like that. Dawn had begun to rise already, further fueling the sinister look in his eyes. Fuck you, Larissa. I asked you to leave while I'm being nice. Are you that dense? I flinched at his tone, stepping back till I felt my spine hit the edge of the square table. I heard Declan repeat his father's words, and bile rose at the back of my throat. I'm very sorry for what happened yesterday, Alpha Caden. I swear on my life and on your mercy that it would never happen again. I pleaded, biting back the part where I wanted to tell him to refrain from cursing in front of the boy. He laughed. He laughed harshly instead. Why? So you can make a fool out of me? The Alpha? He closed the space between us, pushing my chin up to look at me. My breath hitched at that. The proximity was too close, way too close for comfort. I felt his angry breaths on my forehead and a small grunt escape him. I gave you one task, Dash. Declan's eating. I cut in quietly, struggling to steady my breaths. Please, don't do this in front of your son. I forced myself to look away from him before he finally let me go harshly. To hell with you! He yelled again, startling everybody at the table. He ran his hands frantically through his messy hair and glanced at the boy at the table, who was now looking at him with the blankiest stare. He walked up to where the boy was while I struggled to straighten myself and calm my rapid breathing. Why did he always lose his cool with me? I hadn't done a lot of wrong to him, at least not enough for him to want to kill me every time he saw me. I patted my heaving chest, telling myself to calm down. He wouldn't hurt me. Declan's here. He wouldn't hurt me. He glared at me once more before sitting beside the toddler. You have 1 month. Make a stupid move in that month and you wouldn't even get to leave this pack. I would make sure you die a very painless death. He growled out and turned his attention to his son when the French doors were pushed open. It was the redhead, Hunter. I didn't know what kind of relationship he had with the Alpha yet, but I could guess a closeness. Professional or personal, that was what I wasn't sure of. Hunter wasn't smiling as he approached the dining table. He had a small envelope in his hand as he walked, cooing at Declan and nodding lightly at me before returning to his stoic expression. Why the face, Hunter? Alpha Caden questioned, running fingers through his son's hair. He didn't even look at the meal in front of him. He must really hate me then. Hunter dropped the envelope in front of the Alpha, stepping back and bowing at a small angle. It's another letter. His expression shifted to understanding and then annoyance before he tore open the envelope. I found myself wondering what was in it before I saw something flicker in his beautiful eyes. Beautiful eyes, my foot, Larissa. Get your shit together. He shot up from his seat immediately, motioning for Gwendolyn to take Declan away before looking at Hunter. If I thought he looked at me with hate in his eyes, the way he looked at Hunter was with death ringing a bell. Tell the Gemini to meet me 3 days from now. We have a loose cunt on our tail.
Caden's POV.
I was squatting behind one of my favorite trees in the woods, patiently waiting for my prey to come out. It was a tall deer with enchanting eyes. I had sworn it wouldn't escape my sight. But it did, and I was determined to catch it. It also had a peculiar scent, as if it had been infused with something I couldn't make sense of yet. But that wasn't the only reason I was here. I needed to put an end to the mockery of that bastard and his pack. Seeing as he was a fool with 9 lives, I knew it would take more than the same old attack to destroy them once and for all. It was an early afternoon, but the sun rays had been effectively blocked out by the canopy of branches and leaves formed by the tall trees. I heard soft rustling and I ducked out quickly, drawing out an arrow from the rack behind me, and I shot it immediately. There was a loud thud that followed and a loud clap behind me. I spun around with yet another arrow in my bow before pulling it down when I saw Jacob with a wide smile plastered on his face. He was clapping as he did, and I looked up to see his brother crouching on a tall tree branch. He was clapping as well, smiling down at me. "Well done, Alpha Caden," Jacob said, still clapping. He was wearing an identical black t-shirt as I was, with gray shorts and black combat boots. Pretty-faced as ever, he had his hands to his hops in an awkward fashion. "You called for us." "You're late." I snickered instead. "By a full hour. I invited you both to hunt with me, and you came late." "Apologies, my lord." This time, it was Joshua who spoke with his deep voice. It lacked the depth that my voice had, but had more depth than that of Jacob. These two were my best fighters. I couldn't help but sometimes wonder if the heavens mistook Jacob for a woman at the time of his inception. His voice eerily reminded me of a hyena's cackle. "We were ambushed by some Omegas late in the morning, so we had to deal with the emergencies first." He finished, and I cocked a brow. Jacob coughed harshly, sending a glare in his brother's direction before looking at me. "What he's trying to say is that some Omegas were brought for us to take care of. If that's okay." He chuckled awkwardly. I realized what he meant immediately, shaking my head in disapproval. "I have no interest in your sexual shenanigans, you two. I called you here for an important meeting." "I knew hunting was a ruse," Joshua exclaimed, jumping off the tree branch. "At your service, my lord." "So I've been getting some reports from the Luna of the South Sea Pack. She's been sending letters that lead me to believe that Derek wasn't the man we were looking for." I started, drawing their attention aptly. The playfulness in their eyes had disappeared completely, exactly like I wanted. I hated it when they joked about serious matters. But Derek was the alpha of Moonstar Pack. He dared to go against us. Jacob noted, raising a hand to his chin. "I believe he was being controlled by someone else. Perhaps a stronger pack than theirs. And now that the pack has been annihilated, they're acting out by attacking smaller packs to draw attention to themselves. What if they're just doing it to expand their pack? By attacking one of our allies? They know more than to do that, Jacob." Joshua spike up, folding both arms. "I'm with Alpha Caden on this one. They're purposefully doing this. The question is who exactly. That's why I have a mission for you. I need you two to spy on that pack, see what's going on there, and report to me if there's any shady business going on." I said again, and they bowed deeply. "Of course." Jacob spoke up. "As long as it's your command. My brother and I would get ready as soon as possible and be on our way." "Very well then. I'll have a few of my guards come for the deer soon." They bowed again while I made my way out of the woods. The journey back to the house was relatively short. I also loved the soft afternoon breeze that blew against my skin and through my hair. It had been so long since I've had this much peace even in the middle of a storm. As soon as I got to the mansion, I noticed a white SUV parked in the compound. It wasn't mine, I was certain, neither was I expecting a visitor. Suspicious, I walked with careful steps to the entrance and I saw Annalise standing there with the sorriest expression on her face. Confused, I cocked a brow. "What's happening here?" I tried, I swear on my life," she said all too frantically, bowing and startling me. Hunter emerged from the living room, bowing in what I assumed was an apology. Of course, the fucking lot of them must have done something wrong. "What the fuck is going on? What did you do?" I ground out, looking around. I knew we weren't attacked. My men were more than capable of counterattacking. But I had a bad feeling about their reaction. Sighing reluctantly, I walked through into the living room, only to see a jet black-haired woman sitting on the couch, crossing one lean limb over the other. "Oh my, Alpha Caden. It's pleasant to finally see you." Her voice was awfully sweet and her poise was mannered. Even her choice of words were careful. I walked up to her just as soon as she rose to her feet. She was tall for a woman, and she was traditionally beautiful with her hair in a bun and her purple dress flowing down. What I found despicable, however, was her cleavage exposure. "My apologies, but I don't believe we've met before." "Of course we haven't," she chimed, clasping both hands together before falling into a small courtesy bow. "But you have seen my gift, Caden. My lions in love?" "Oh." I clicked my tongue at that, remembering the embarrassing gift item she had sent me. So she was the Luna of the Shadow Pack. How disappointing. That reminds me, I haven't seen it anywhere. She looked up to meet my eyes with a wide smile plastered on her bright red lips. Perhaps you didn't like it? I dash. I brought you some more. She cut in with her very irritating voice, pointing to the center table I'd only just noticed. There were multiple boxes lying on it, and I watched her ramble on about the items in them. There's some sapphire, onyx, and even obsidians. You like hunting, so I thought you'd want your craftsman to make you some weapons out of obsidians. I wanted to bring a diamond sculpt, but dash. Are you now spying on my pack? I said as calmly as I could, yet it slipped somehow into a growl. She didn't flinch in the slightest. Instead, she shook her head and folded her arms. Of course not, Caden. Is it now a crime to be in love with you? She pouted. Did she think that disgusting thing was cute? I came here myself just to bring these gifts to you and ask you to reconsider before pushing me away. I beg to refuse your proposal, Luna. I sighed out in annoyance and ran a hand through my hair. You're a beautiful woman, but I'm not interested in marriage. Let alone to a widowed Luna. Is that because of your wife? Her tone was taunting, and she closed the distance between us, bringing a hand to my face. The mention of Amaya made my blood boil. She dared mention that bitch to my face? I know you're upset with her, Amaya, was it? Be mad all you want, but it doesn't mean that you should firmly close your heart to love all around you. Shut up! I snarled, grabbing her hands and forcing them away. She giggled instead, playing with her tongue, and I saw her dark pupils dilate. I like a fighter, Caden. She twirled playfully, stopping to hold my arm again. It's the same reason I hated my mate before he died. Her voice fell flat. He didn't know how to play hard to get, or how to get what he wanted. He was a weakling, but you're not. I love that glare. I love the fight you can bring to the table. Our packs can be united and become the strongest single pack to have ever existed. She continued to circle round me, whispering, Love me, Caden. I'm not Amaya, I'm something much more powerful. A loud thud pulled me out of her entrancing voice and towards the entrance. I looked to see Annalise crouching, pulling up a blonde-haired woman from where she had fallen. My eyes shifted to the figure by their side. Realizing that was Declan, my eyes widened to see Larissa finally on her feet. Her brown eyes that always held pleas were almost empty, and her hair was tied up in a haggard ponytail. For some reason, I found myself wanting to read the expression on her face. Instead, she stared at me briefly before looking away and awkwardly clearing her throat. Sorry. She muttered out, picking up Declan before half-jogging up the stairs. I glanced at Annalise and Hunter with the most deathly icicles I could muster. They knew better than to let this bitchy Luna into my house. Is that your son? I'll take care of him too. Oh, for fuck's sake, shut up. Shut the fuck up. I snapped at the woman and she finally flinched, stepping back. Politeness doesn't do it for you? Fine. I don't want to get married, let alone to a lousy bat like you. The only respect I owe you is that of your dead husband whom you're badmouthing here. So do yourself some good and leave. And this would be the last time you would send me gifts, or I'll burn them. Obsidians don't burn. She taunted, laughing lightly with twinkling eyes. But very well, I did my best. Neither do I want a miserly person who doesn't know a jewel when he sees one. She tapped my chin before walking away in confident strides. I ran my hands through my hair in annoyance. I wanted to punish whoever let her into my house, the nerve of the bitch. I looked back to the entrance, but Annalise and Hunter were nowhere in sight. My thoughts drifted back to the woman fallen there, who stared at me with empty eyes for the first time. Even if we were mates, did she think that I thought of her any more than I did Amaya? They were both cheating bastards, and she would never make it to my heart. But she's still your mate, you shouldn't treat her like she's non-existent. Shut up. I growled tiredly at my wolf, tapping at my arms a little harshly. It was better like this. I would never fall prey to another lying bitch. She could get hurt all she wanted, that was what was befitting for the likes of her. But why then do you leave her in your house, taking care of your son? How many times have you threatened to kill her? If you really don't care about her, I dare you to kill her.